Hello and welcome to today's video. This video is all about the books that I have read in the month of November. Now, for a normal person, I got a lot read. It's a great number. However, for myself, I didn't get a lot read in the month of November. There were some work things that came up. There were some personal life things that came up, and just like a little bit of a reading slump. For a normal person, it probably wouldn't seem that way considering how many books I did manage to get read. However, for myself, I do know that I typically read more in a month than I did in the month of November. So without further ado, let's get into the books that I actually managed to get to. The first book that I will be talking about is actually our book club book of the month this month, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book has been sitting on my TBR shelf probably since 2017. This is one of those books that I picked up because it was popular, it was everywhere, but it's not necessarily the type of book that I usually gravitate towards. So it's been sitting unread on my TBR shelf for years now. When Ashley, Danielle, and I were planning our book club reads for the year of 2025, this one was suggested because Ashley saw that it was on both her TBR and my TBR. It's definitely more a book that Ashley reads, and Danielle was not interested in it going into the book. I don't know what the girls think about the second half because at the time of recording this, we've only talked about the first half of this book. But I know Danielle was enjoying it more than she expected. Ashley was also enjoying it, and I found it kind of boring. This book is about Evelyn Hugo, who is a recluse. She was a star in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. She's an actress, and it's all about her finally being willing to do a tell-all. She picks, seemingly out of nowhere, what is it? It's not recorder, journalist. She picks seemingly out of nowhere the journalist Monique. Is her last name on here? Monique Grant. Seemingly out of nowhere, she picks the journalist Monique Grant to do a one-on-one tell-all on her life. And it's all about Evelyn explaining the joys, the loves of her life, the scandals, what really happened, all throughout the seven husbands that she had in her lifetime. She is an older woman now and is finally willing to tell all because everyone she loves is dead. I enjoyed the pacing of this book. I think it was really cool that it is broken up in sections by Evelyn's husbands. The pacing was really good. I did enjoy that part, but overall, this really wasn't a book for me. I stand by that. I ended up reading this November 9th to the 22nd. Partially, it's such a long time because I needed to talk to the girls about it, the first half, so I could only read half of it in one go. And then after we talked about it on the 17th, I was like, I need to finish this. I just need it to be over with. I found the plot to be lackluster. It wasn't showing a lot of things. It was telling a lot of things, which makes sense considering it's a conversation between two people. And yes, a history is being told, but that doesn't necessarily correlate to a really interesting plot in my mind. I also believe that this was loosely based off of a famous woman who actually existed. I can't remember the name of that person, but if I can find it, I'm going to put it here. But yeah, I've been told by someone that it's based on a famous actress whose husbands had the same careers or around the same careers. She also had seven husbands, and it's like a silly spin-off in an alternate reality about that. So I think that's cool. However, I only gave it 3 stars because I kind of felt it to be boring. Like, I saw things coming. I wasn't shocked by anything. Again, makes sense. This isn't the type of book that I typically expect to shock me, but that is also kind of why I didn't enjoy it as much. It was just a lot of heavy conversations and not much else. So that was our book club book of the month. If you want to see Danielle and Ashley's thoughts, you'll have to check out their wrap ups because I do not know at the point of filming this. I have not talked with the girls yet about this. Danielle's video went live on Monday, November 24th. Monday, November 24th, and Ashley's is going live Friday, November 28th. So check those out if you want to see what the girls thought about this book. The next group of books that I want to talk about in this video are the physical books that I got through this month. There were a couple of them, aside from The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. There were 7 other physical books that I got through. The first couple were the Apothecary Diaries manga volumes 1 to 4 by Natsu Hyuuga. Of course, this is a series that I've talked about many times on this channel. I absolutely adore this series, and if you don't know, now you know. I am obsessed. I'm not going to say much about it because I have talked about it so many times, but this series is about the apothecary Mao Mao after she gets kidnapped and traded into slavery, or like sold into slavery in the rear palace where the concubines for the emperor live. Mao Mao wants to keep her head down and just live the quiet life, but she gets sucked into things because she is so curious, and when something grabs her attention, she can't leave it alone. Mao Mao ends up becoming surrounded by a slew of characters that need her brains and her abilities to get through things. She foils plots. She finds out what's really going on, if it's on purpose, if it's an accident, all of those things. Mao Mao is your girl. I read volume 1 on November 3rd and, of course, gave it 5 stars. Volume 2 on November 4th, gave it 5 stars. Volume 3 on November 5th, gave it 5 stars. And then volume 4, I started it on November 5th, finished it on November 6th because it got too late to continue, and of course gave it 5 stars. I would have continued on in the series, but I want them as physical manga and I have not gotten them yet. So when I continue to acquire the books, that's when I will continue to read them. The next group of physical books that I finished is actually a trilogy that I have been in love with for years, I think since 2020, and that is the trilogy The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. The first book, The Luminaries, is about Wednesday Winona Winnie. She is undergoing the Luminary trials. However, there is a catch. Her and her family have been outcasts for 4 years now because her father was found out to be a Diana, which is dark witches that try to steal the power of the spirit that lives in the woods surrounding Hemlock Falls. Because of this, Winnie and her family are not supposed to be actually a part of the community, even though they live in it. They are outcasts. They are not welcome to pretty much anything. Winnie manages to sneak her way into the first trial and manages to shock everyone by what happens. Chaos ensues. Winnie proves herself or doesn't prove herself in ways that no one expected, including Winnie herself. I read this book November 13th to 15th and gave it 5 stars. That should come as no shock to literally anyone. I have 3 copies of the Luminaries, 1 copy that I read and am willing to lend out, 1 copy that is signed by the author, and 1 copy that I have annotated. It is the only book that I have annotated in my life, and I thought that it would be interesting to do it in a book that I have reread many a time. It wouldn't seem like this book is one of the ones that I have read the most times, but since it was originally published in a year, it was published in a year. 22. Since this book was published in 2022, I have read it, I think, 5 times now. I have the physical books. I have it as an audiobook. I absolutely adore this. It is one of my favorite things of all time. I can't say enough how much I love this book. It is so good. Oh my God, is it so good. And yes, you heard that right. I have been obsessed with it since around 2020, maybe a little later than that. And it was published in 2022. And that is because if you know anything about this series, you probably aren't as crazy as I am about this, but you might know some of the stuff. Basically, Susan Dennard was stuck in an airport. Her flight was delayed and she was bored. So she started what she thought would be a couple of hours long. It was a Twitter poll with her followers just to like play a video style option-based poll game on Twitter where she gave people options to vote which would make Winnie go through things in order to either win or lose. Like video games, Winnie had 3 lives in this Twitter poll. It then became a thing where it was way bigger than it was ever expected to be, and people loved it so much that it was based on a story that Susan Dennard had in her mind that she tried to get picked up as a book and was turned down. This is before she was published at all. Other books have come out, like the Witchland books got her really famous. There was another series that I can't think of right now that I'm going to put the name of here and a picture of the first book here. Those books came out and she was like, oh, this is a series. And she was like, oh, this is a series. This is a thought. This is a book that I'll never be able to write. But it became such a big thing that it became a book. And I am so happy it did. So, of course, the first one is The Luminaries. I, again, read that November 13th to 15th. I had to give it 5 stars. One of my favorite books of all time. The second one is The Hunting Moon by Susan Dennard. I read this one on November 16th to 19th. I'm not going to say anything about this at all, considering the first book was just spoken about. Just know that this follows the events of the first one, and they are some of the prettiest yet creepiest books that I've ever seen. For context, there's The Luminaries. It also has a skull on it. I've got The Hunting Moon. And then The Hunting Moon I had also read before, so this was a reread. But I am awful at finishing series that I am absolutely adoring because I don't want them to end. So this month I finally read for the first time, even though it's been out for a while, The Whispering Night by Susan Dennard. And I read this on November 19th. I gave it 5 stars and it made me sob. Like, I cried a lot. Not necessarily because of the contents of this book. Well, yes, the contents of this book was part of the reason why I did it, but I cried because it was over. And it has been a series that I've like wanted to have in my life and wanted to have finished for years, but also didn't want to finish because it's been such a huge thing for me. So I definitely cried when this one was over, but I highly recommend these 3 books. The next group of books that I finished this month that I want to talk about are the ebooks that I read. The first one being That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human by Kimberly Lemming. This is the 3rd book in the series, so I'm not going to say much about it. I have read the other 2 recently and have spoken about them at least briefly in wrap-ups already on this channel, so I'm not going to say a bunch about it here. These are the months that I read them in, if you want to know my thoughts on books 1 and 2. I enjoyed this one more than I did book 2, but I think on par, if not a little bit less than I enjoyed book 1. It was cute. It was enjoyable. It was a quick and easy read. I ended up reading it on November 6th, and I gave it 3 stars just because it was fun. It was great. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't groundbreaking. It's just, it is what it is. It was a fun read while I was there, but isn't one that I'm likely to go back to. That's also why I didn't physically purchase it. I have the second book, which I originally thought was a standalone, but clearly it's not. So I don't think I'm going to get the rest of these books in physical format. I also think that I'll probably end up giving away the second one just because it's not one that I'm necessarily a huge fan of and don't know that I'll ever end up rereading it. I have so many books that giving one away to someone who will give it a better home is probably the way to go. The next book that I read was I Survived the Attacks of September 11th, 2001, the graphic novel by Georgia Ball. I read this on November 8th and gave it 5 stars. It was, I mean, it's one of the most traumatic things to have happened in North America in my lifetime. I understand that there is way worse things that happen everywhere around the world, and like just things are awful, but this is one of my core memories from childhood. I can actually remember where I was when it was September 11th, 2001. Like I remember what I was doing, what happened and everything, because I'm old enough to remember, but young enough that I didn't know what was happening until years later. So just seeing like in picture format the life experience of someone that like went through it actually there when the Twin Towers were attacked. Like that was super powerful to me. I do think that it's important to know about history. If you're not a huge history person, like I'm not a huge history person, I can't sit there and read a 300-page book about history like super easily. It takes me a long time to get through those books and I don't enjoy them as much. I find graphic novels are a great way to learn more about history, but maybe not have it be as heavy and like feel like a slog as it might otherwise feel like. So if you're okay with reading graphic novels, because I know not everybody is, but if graphic novels are a way that you don't mind ingesting information, like this is a great version to do it. The I Survived series, I've heard a lot about, and think that it's a really great series to teach you about history and things that have happened. This is the first one that I have read from the series, but I will absolutely be continuing on and picking up more to learn more about the history of the world we live in. The next book that I finished this month was No Bones About It by Allie Brahms. I read this November 8th to 15th, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. This is the second book in the Ghost Cupid series, the first one being Break No Bones, I believe. I read the first one last month just by trying to fill out a prompt in our October spooky book bingo or bewitched book bingo, and I ended up falling in love with it, so I had to continue on with the series. I absolutely flew through this book, loved it so much. I think it's so funny. After the events in the first book, we actually are following what's her name? In this book, we are following Zen as he goes on his monster hunting thing after getting the cast off his foot from the first book, and Chris is with him. It's a really cute, like cozy, ghost-centered, ghost hunting, monster hunting book, but it's also so cute. I absolutely loved it. I would have continued on with the series, but unfortunately, the third book doesn't come out yet. So I couldn't read it. I think it's super fun. I can't wait to continue on with the series. Allie Brahms is an author that I had not read before this and is one that I will definitely be reading more of. I really enjoyed that book. I think it's so much fun. I would happily gush all about it, but I don't want to spoil what happens in this book as it is the second one. Just know that I am definitely enjoying my time in this world. The final ebook that I read this month was The Billionaire's Bride by Tansy Rhodes. I read this November 22nd and ended up giving it 3 stars. This is your stereotypical, like, short, insta-love, fast-paced, Kindle Unlimited romance read about a billionaire and the love interest, the female love interest in this case. And I enjoyed it. I needed a fluffy, quick read, so I ended up reading that, which was a lot of fun. I did enjoy that. There's not much that I'm really going to say about it. It's your stereotypical billionaire romance love story. They're all over Kindle Unlimited. I find them enjoyable when I pick one up just like as a little bit of a palate cleanser after reading a heavier book, like one that makes me sob uncontrollably. So I did enjoy that this one had a little bit more of an analytical twist to it, where it really got into risk management by one of the characters, like the way his brain works. That was a really interesting twist on the normal billionaire romance trope. And as much as, like I did say, it's insta-lovey, that's because the main characters have known each other for over a decade, and the timeline in the book itself, while 90% of it is super fast-paced, takes place over a couple of days, the ending kind of like slows things down, and the passage of time happens a little bit more, so it makes it feel more realistic, and that part was definitely enjoyable. It was a really quick read, which was easy. It was less than 200 pages, so I enjoyed it. The next section of books that I read were the audiobooks that I listened to this month, which are not very many. The first one being Wicked Witch by Tess Lake. I read almost every single one of the books in this series. This is the final book in the Torrent Witches Cozy Mystery series by Tess Lake. I loved the series through and through. I listened to this one. Oh gosh, I didn't do that. I listened to this book October 30th to November 1st and ended up giving this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. This entire series, I think, was really well done. I loved the overarching plot that slowly gets more and more convoluted until everything comes clear. I love the romances that happen in this book. I love how it's not just about romance, how it's about the family dynamics of a full family of witches and how they're unable to keep their love interests and things that happen, and like it's the twists and the turns and all of the things that I can't talk about when I'm talking about book 10 of a series. I picked this series up originally as one of the Audible Plus books, just because it's included, and it had all 10 of the series in it. Freaking flew through it. I definitely expected the series to take me longer to get through than it did, but I absolutely loved it. I think it was amazing. This kind of put me in a little bit of a book slump, not because it was bad, but because it was so good that it was kind of hard to follow up with. Not to say there weren't some amazing reads. Like, clearly I have a lot of 5-star reads this month, which is amazing, but I had a book hangover. I wanted more in the world, more of these characters, and I didn't have it. So as much as like I went to favorite books in the Apothecary Diaries and the Luminaries, and I did read some other books that were new to me for the first time, and palette cleanser books and things. It wasn't the same, and I really did an amazing job in reading this month, and this book in particular was a great way to start the month off, but it was such a great way to start the month off that it just couldn't go up from there, unfortunately. So here we are towards the end of the month, and there is very little that I got read for me, not for a normal person. I understand for a normal person, I still read a crazy amount of books. That being said, I also listened to Curse of Shadows and Thorns by L.J. Andrews. I read this November 3rd to 10th, and I gave it 4 stars. If you think that the title of this book rings a bell, that's because Danielle this summer, was absolutely obsessed with the series. I believe she has read. She has read the first 6 books, I believe, of the series, and she was really excited by them, really loved them. I know she wants to continue on, but school has just been kicking her butt recently, and work has been insane. I fully applaud her and every other teacher that's able to not deal with, but like work with children every day and their energy. Because personally, as much as I love kids, that sounds so exhausting day in and day out. So like fully applaud her for being able to be a teacher and be an amazing teacher, because she's great. Absolutely amazing. But yeah, so if it sounds familiar, it's because Danielle has already talked about these books a couple of times on the channel. It's about this woman, Elise, whose uncle is the king, and their family has usurped the original rulers of this land. They're the Fae of the land, and like the original rulers were Fae, and they ended up usurping that and becoming the leading family. Elise is finally coming of age, and her uncle says that she needs to get married in order to help alliances. And Elise does not want to get married. She gets stuck with this man named Legion, who is supposed to help get her married and like be the go-between between her and any potential matches. Things ended up getting dark and twisted, and people aren't who they seem. And her family, as much as they're bad people, they might also be good people, but are they really bad people? And there's just so many different levels of the characters in this book. Danielle does a way better explanation of the series than I do. I've only read the first one, and so much happens in the first one alone that I don't want to give too much away. But I did enjoy this book. I think it was fun, and I will certainly continue on, but only the first one was available as an Audible Plus book. So I will have to go on to Kindle Unlimited to keep reading, which means I need time to sit down and read with my eyes instead of with my ears. So that did not happen this month. I will certainly have more time in December, considering where I work, you get the last week of December off, and then like the last bit for the new year off. I don't go back to work until I think the 6th or 7th of January, whatever that Monday is. So like I know I have a chunk of time where I can read, and I really want to sit down and like bang out a good chunk of what I haven't finished so far this year, that kind of stuff. So like keep an eye out on that. My December TBR will definitely talk more about those books, but this series is one of the ones that I hope I can read at least one more of before the end of the year, as long as things go according to plan. The final book that I have at the time of recording finished in the month of November is The Crash by Freida McFadden. This is a book that I've been trying to get Danielle to read 4 months. She finally did it at the end of October, so it was my turn to play catch up. I ended up reading it November 11th to 12th, and I only gave it 3 stars. It's about a woman who is pregnant and ends up in a crash in a snowstorm. She runs into a tree, and this man rescues her from her car from freezing to death, and he takes her home with her. It's him and his wife, and they're not exactly what they seem, and she might not be as innocent as she seems. So it's all about like that and what happens. I have read this with Danielle, clearly, but I'm not going to say much of anything about this book until you see the video that's coming out specifically talking about this book. Sorry to suck. But that is it. Those are all of the books that I finished before the timing of recording this. If I do manage to finish any other books, which I probably will, just because there's still about a week left of November by the time that I'm filming this, and just shortly less than a week of November by the time that this video comes out. So because of that, there are most likely going to be some books that I finish reading. If there are, I'll put them down in the comments below, just so you can see what books I read, if I had any thoughts about them, if they were rereads, if they were new reads, if I broke my reading slump. check out the comments of this video probably around November 1st, just to see what I did actually manage to do. That's where I'll end up putting that. But for now, those are all of the books that I finished. There are some that I'm currently in the middle of that I've been in the middle of for a month now, maybe longer. All of them I haven't finished just because I am in a slight bit of a reading slump. But I do think that it'll get better over the next month or so. I certainly hope, at least. Things are definitely going to be busy with work over the next, basically until the Christmas break. I'm working until December 24th, and I will be working until December 24th. I might be able to get work stuff done a little bit early, but there's a lot going on right now, which is partially impacting the amount that I can read. And unfortunately, it has also impacted the amount of videos that I've been able to edit, which is why the month of November, we haven't had as many videos out. I'm really sorry about that, but there's a little bit of an explanation there. But yeah, there are definitely books that I aim to finish, hopefully by the end of November. If I do finish any, they'll be down below. But for this video, thanks so much for spending time with us. I would love to know what you managed to read in November. Did you have a better month than I did? Were you also in a reading slump? Am I just insane and silly for saying that 15 books completed is a reading slump? Because I understand that some people don't even finish one book a year. I would love to know how crazy you think I am about all of that stuff. But until then, happy reading. I'll see you in the next one. And if not me, then Ashley, who is in the next video all by herself. So until the next one, have an absolutely lovely day. Good luck with your reading, and I want to hear all about it. Bye!